Stronger.
Imagine a world without choices.
Stronger.
Imagine you can't make your own decision. That wouldn't be a world for me. That wouldn't be a world for you. UIC.
Tell them we're gonna be stronger. Together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. Gonna be stronger together. Time we all just unify. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. It is a natural right for every human being to be free. Free, so free. So the government is there to protect you and me. UIC objective is to liberate the citizens from colonial bondage, them regulation, them taxation. Up Jamaica, we independent. Be stronger together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. We're gonna be stronger together. Come, we all just unify. Our purpose.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to another edition of UIC Liberty TV. My name is Joseph Patterson, and this evening we have a special presentation for you. Welcome to all of you who are on the line, both on YouTube and on our social media platforms. So today I want to talk to you about how did we get here? How did we get to a place where our primary school and basic school children are unsafe? How did we get to a place where Jamaica is so hard to live in and so corrupt? How did we get here? There's a story behind it all, and I want to unfold that story for you in no uncertain terms. As you all know, we had our rally, or Rise Up Jamaica rally on Saturday. The We the People rally on Saturday at Mandela Park from 4 a.m. onwards. Well, just before I was about to speak, the electricity went out quite conveniently. So just as I was about to speak, there was a complete pitch darkness. And so we had to, struggle to get a generator going and then try to get things going. But the generator failed a couple of times. It was very noisy, it was dark, it was not the best environment for me to give my speech and presentation. But nonetheless, we had a very good time. The atmosphere was quite jovial. The presentation from all the other speakers were on point. We had our chairman, Mr. Winston Wright, who did an excellent job of chairing the function. We had General Secretary Carla Acosta, who did a brilliant job in her welcoming comments. We had 3 vice presidents, VP Coretta, Brown Johnson, VP Powell, and VP Chase Neal, all of whom presented quite well. And so it was a very good day. And we had a, not such a great turnout, but the people who came were quite engaged and quite exciting. So it was a good day all around. We enjoyed it fully. But as I said before, unfortunately, the light went out just in time, or just about when I was about to speak. And so tonight I want to share with you the entirety of that speech that I was supposed to make. And hopefully we won't have any power cuts here. My solar backup system or solar system is in place, and hopefully our internet won't fail. But tonight I'm going to share that with you. But before we go into my presentation, let me welcome all of you again who are online. I want to remind you to like, share, and comment so we can reach many Jamaicans here at home and around the world because of your effort. By you sharing this live with all of our friends and families, all of your contacts around the world, you are helping us to push the algorithm to reach more people. As you know, we're not carried by mainstream media generally, so we depend entirely on your efforts to spread the word around the world. Please also make sure you subscribe to UIC Liberty TV and encourage your family and friends to do the same. The more people who subscribe, the more we will reach people, and they will be able to tell more people, and we can expand accordingly. And why do we need to expand? Listen carefully to my presentation, and you'd see why it's important for us to grow this grassroots movement as our movement and our party. I want to break now just to go back to the case that you have heard of this 8-year-old child, girl, and her brother that was abducted. In the Observer, it says, a sense of anger mixed with caution and hope was evident among parents at the Brayton Primary and Infant School in St. Catherine on Friday morning, a day after an 8-year-old student and her brother was abducted after school and her throat slashed. Just imagine. There was an outpouring of outrage and disgust and shock and empathy and condolence and everything pouring out. But on Saturday, the 10th, the young girl, the child, 8 years old, succumbed to her injuries and died. Her brother was not harmed, but both of them were thrown from the vehicle. But just imagine what Jamaica has come to when we no longer have any regard for children, for seniors, for women. It's like we've lost our soul, we've lost our moral compass to the nth degree. And our leaders or misleaders appear to be paralyzed, incapable of doing anything. But maybe they can't do anything because they are really the architects of the nightmare that we now find ourselves in. And so I want to play something for you that I believe captures fully the problem that we're faced with. It's a song by two young ladies that I have, great respect for, great regard for, very young ladies. But this song from them fully captures the problem, and I will delve into a bit of details when I go into my presentation, which is going to get to the very bottom of how we got to where we are now. And I'm going to share with you also what we need to do to get out of it. So let me share that with you now, and we take it from there.
Jamaica cry. Though the country need a change, but it starts with us. Though a full time we unite and stand as one. Out of many, one people.
Another you die, crime rate gone to the sky. Politician them a tell bare lies, Work now run, we can't get a blind. Ghetto people can't get a blind. Price raise but the food off a buy. Sup on the guns, the youth them rely.
The leaders just a chillin' at the mansions, and a chill poor people with sanctions. Price raise but them still off a tax man. Get a youth need a chance for relax man. The country just designed for the Tories, while the residents them are the poorest. In a city youths them malnourished. Me never see a yard man from the foreplace. Every day another youth die, oh why? Politicians them a tell bare lie, They don't wanna see us prosper, they don't wanna see us try. They clip a wing, they no want we fly. They don't wanna see us fly.
Babies are have babies. The human traffic, them kidnap the ladies. We get the vote, them top or changes. Then use the same policies from the 80s. Babylon to stop harass the vendors. The churches are some big pretenders. Me get a loan, but the profit when me make come back in all the interest to the lender. Every day another you die. Crime rate gone to the sky. Politician them a tell bare lies, Work now run, we can't get a blind. Ghetto people can't get a blind. Price raise but the food off a buy. Sup on the guns, the youth them rely.
Get a youth want fly with the visa and take some trips to Ibiza. Meet some girl pretty like Lisa. Hannah, them can't solve murder but quickly stop scammer.
Them a blame crime rate on the music, but for win election them use it. Them a use politics, may we prove it. Jam done can change if we choose it. Every day another you die, another you die, oh why? Politicians them a tell pure lie, them a tell pure lies. They don't wanna see us prosper, they don't wanna see us try. Them clip a wing, them no want if we fly, they don't wanna see us fly.
I am the first, I am the last, I am the beginning and the ending. And him say be telling you, him say his signs are near. Look to Jesus.
Yeah, that song really hits the spot. It speaks clearly to the problem we have. And the refrain in the song, which is the politicians are telling us pure lies, that is absolutely true. And so now I want to present to you the very speech that I wanted to make on the 10th. I did go ahead and speak, but the environment was quite noisy, dark, and I was very distracted. So I want to share with you now my full presentation. I'll do all of it as if it was, the same day and time, which was the 10th of June. A very, very special day. You might not be aware of this, but that day had tremendous significance. But it's not really something we talked about in our schools. It's not something that is lodged in the consciousness of Jamaican people because they really don't want you to be thinking around that kind of information. So let's do that now. I'm going to switch my presentation and shift to what I would have done on June 10th at Mandela Park. So let's begin. Mr. Chairman, Winston Wright, Madam General Secretary, Carly Ramirez Acosta, Madam Treasurer, Naika Williams, Vice President, Chase Neal, or Neil Chase, Chase Neal, Coretta Brown Johnson, Jasmine Powell, all other distinguished members of the National Executive Council, UIC Jamaica Diaspora Ambassadors, Emma Gordon of Canada, Lisa Abdul of the USA, and Rosemary King of the UK. To our performing artists as well, and other distinguished guests, welcome. Everyone in the audience and within the hearing of my voice, welcome. All uniters here and around the world, thank you for being here in person and online. Last but most importantly, I want to acknowledge my very best friend, who I met and fell in love with in the 8th grade at Spanish Town. She is my business partner and my wife for the last 29 years. Mrs. Patterson, Charlotte Masada Patterson. Without you, none of this would have been possible. You are truly the wind beneath my wings. Marcus Garvey lived from 1887 to 1940. He died today, June 10th, in the year 1940 at the tender age of 53. He was just 1 year older than I am today. Like him, I was born in August, and like him, I am determined to unite, liberate, and empower our race and our people. Marcus Garvey died a broken man because we allowed the colonial powers, the PSOJ oligarchs, and their two colonial parties to destroy him and the People's Party that he created. We allowed them to crucify him and demanded Barabbas instead. To understand the nature of the man that we allowed the colonial powers, the PSOJ oligarchs, and the media, with the help of two colonial parties to destroy, I want to share with you just a few of his most powerful statements. The first one that really impacted me and which has shaped my life and my attitude, it says, if you have no confidence in self, you're twice defeated in the race of life. I hold those statements to be dear because I want to inspire all of us to be confident in the fact that we can change the course of our nation's history, that we can change the course of our story, that we can write a new narrative for our country, that we can build a new reality for ourselves. But first, we must have confidence in self. We must not allow ourselves to be deceived by those who would tell us that no other political party can succeed in Jamaica except for the two that have been placed before us. Another statement by Marcus Garvey, which really impacted me, is the statement that if you liberate the minds of men, ultimately you will liberate the bodies of men. Now think about the time when Marcus Garvey was saying that and the relevance of that statement as a people freshly coming out of slavery. And he recognized that it's not just the physical body of men that must be unshackled, but the real unshackling must begin in our minds. If we do not liberate the mind, even liberating the body still leaves the man in shackles, really. And you'll see that clearly from what I'm about to share with you. Another statement by Marcus Garvey, which should have a tremendous impact on us and should really challenge us when we look at ourselves in the mirror. This statement, as a child, impacted me, and as a man today, and because of who I am and how I was raised, the country that I was born in, the people I see mostly around me as a child, this was very significant. He said, the black skin is not a badge of shame. The black skin is not a badge of shame, but rather a glorious symbol of national greatness. I want you to allow those words to sink into your consciousness. The black skin is not a badge of shame, but rather a glorious symbol of national greatness. He followed this up with the most profound words that I believe he has ever uttered, and which should shape you and me every day. He said, with confidence, you have won before you have started. It is because of our lack of confidence why some have been able to lead us astray and have done it for so long. But the moment we begin to believe in ourselves and accept that we can do more and be more than we have been made out to be by the colonial powers and by our misleaders, the moment we have confidence in self, we have already won. It is the lack of confidence which keeps us back in our personal lives and in our lives as a race and the people. But the final quote I want to share with you tonight from Marcus Garvey is going to guide the rest of my presentation, the rest of my speech. And this statement is most profound because it is the foundation upon which I've built this presentation, and it's the foundation upon which we must build the new Jamaica that the UIC is inviting us to build. This statement by Marcus Garvey should be placed on every child's school book, on the refrigerator in every home, at the top of some significant wall or place inside your living room. Somewhere in your house, this statement should be there to remind you of how important it is and why you cannot afford to do without it. Marcus Garvey said, and I will quote, he said, A people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. I'll repeat that for you. A people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. Just picture a tree that has lost its roots. It cannot stand, it cannot survive, it will wither, and it will die. That one statement is enough to encapsulate why we're in such a dire state today, because we have lost our roots. We have lost our way. We have lost our culture. We have no idea of our origin, and we're lost in darkness because we don't understand what brought us to where we are today. And so we cannot do what we must to lift ourselves up out of the pit of hell that our misleaders have led us. Well, tonight I want to open our eyes to understand that past history and to begin to appreciate our origin and to once again contemplate the possibility of reconstructing our culture into something more brilliant than what we have ever seen in our past. So the question is, how did we get here? How did we get here? How did we get to this place? Well, let me share with you how we got here. History tells us that 531 years ago, a European named Christopher Columbus came to these shores, and what followed was the savage rape, enslavement, and plunder of our people by those who were more focused, listen carefully, those who were more focused on securing and protecting their interests than we were in securing and protecting our own. It is almost impossible to believe that just a few of them were able to subdue, enslave, and rule over so many of us when we were numerically outnumbering them by 20 to 1, 100 to 1, and in some cases, even 200 to 1. How was that possible? It was made possible by their burning desire for better and for more. Their willingness to think, learn, and take whatever action necessary to realize their dream. They were more serious about conquest than we were about freedom. While we were busy, engaged in the misguided pursuits of praying for rain or inquiring of the dead for direction, they were busy planning strategies and inventing tools to eat our breakfast, our lunch, and our dinner. Yes. So while we were busy engaging in rituals which were not helpful, they were busy engaging in building and creating weapons of war, strategies, all manner of trickeries to ensure that they would come out on top. By the time we realized what was happening, they had us either helping them to catch and enslave our brothers and sisters, or we were in shackles at the bottom of their ships, or we were laboring without pay on the plantations that they built on captured lands. Yes, they were squatters, and they legalized their squatting, and they legalized our enslavement, and they legalized human trafficking. And they got away with it because they spent more time doing what was necessary to achieve their goals while we were doing things that made us vulnerable. Since then until now, they have responded swiftly and skillfully to outsmart us at every attempt we made to regain our freedom and our lands, or the wealth that came from our stolen labor and our stolen lands. I hate to break it to you, if you didn't know this already, but we are all still slaves. Not in iron chains, not on the whips, leather whips and wooden whips and canes, no. We have been and are being transitioned from one form of slavery to the next and to the next. But the greatest of all of these slavery is mental slavery. And its physical manifestation is in a form of slavery that I call wage slavery. So after 400 years of so-called chattel slavery, that is where the slaves were in chains and under the whips and beaten and driven like cattle. So after 400 years of chattel slavery, they have figured out the best form of slavery is when the slave no longer believes he's a slave, but calls himself a free man. When the only freedom he really has is the freedom to do as he is told. Under wage slavery, you are free to beg a job or to start a micro or small business in a hostile environment where they tax away your income, inflate away your purchasing power, and mortgage away your life, and regulate away your rights. So no matter how hard or how long you work, you will most likely retire financially insecure and poor. You see, in 1838, when they supposedly freed the slave, it was just a trick, a massive trick, which I'm going to explain to you. So in 1838, if we go back to your history book and check it out, 1838, they tell us that we got emancipation, we were freed in 1838. It was not real freedom at all. It was a fake freedom, a fake emancipation. Why? Because they did not give us back our land. The land that they stole from our ancestors, they did not give that back to us. They held on to the land. Nor did they compensate us for the loss of our labor. And I bet you didn't think of this one. They did not compensate us for the deliberate suppression of our intellect. Yes? I wonder if you realize that. I wonder if you thought about that. So there's three things that they held on to, that they did not return to you, return to our ancestors, when they gave us this fake freedom, this fake emancipation, which we're led to applaud and get excited about. They withheld the land. They withheld the lost labor. Very important, you know, land is capital. Labor that has been expended to produce product is capital. But worse than that, they also deliberately suppressed our intellect by making sure they denied us the right to education, to a proper education, to be able to read and write and reason. So when they freed the slaves, they did not compensate them by giving them back the land, giving them back the money made from their labor, or for the loss they will now endure because of the suppression of their intellect. You might have thought that under our own so-called leaders, things would be different. Things would be better, you thought to yourself. Now we have these two beautiful parties that have come up, and they are telling us that they are our leaders, and we have elected them. You'd have thought that by now things would have been different, but they're not. Our leaders were in fact, and still are, nothing but misleaders, spelled in capital letters. Our leaders were in fact and are still nothing but misleaders. They are carrying on the trick and the lies to this day. If you cannot see this clearly anywhere, you must be able to see it in this one fact that I'm about to share with you. Just like their colonial masters, they too have withheld the land from you. Nowhere in history will you find that they have returned the land to you. Even after 61 years of independence, they have not returned the land to you. Even after 80 years of them being in government, the first election was in 1944 until now, 80 years almost, they have not sought to return the land to you. The most fundamental part of real freedom, of giving you back at least the physical land so that you can build on it, so that you can have a foundation, so you can have something of intergenerational wealth to pass on to your children. They have withheld that from you. Those two parties that you may have voted for, that you may have run up and down and helped to form your government, they have withheld the land from you. Yes, there are a few of us that they have given lands to through all kinds of deals. And yeah, they have skillfully tricked, conned, and forced you to slave at low wages, to borrow money at interest from their banking friends, to buy back the very land that was already yours by birthright. To add insult to injury, they have forced you on the threat of taking away your property if you do not pay them a rent, which is called property tax. Even in your old age, as your income level starts to decline, as your health starts to decline, they still want you to pay a rent for the land, for your house. They call it a property tax, which means they are prepared to stress you right to the grave. A property tax makes you a land holder, not a land owner, not a property owner. This is why a key policy of the UIC is to divest all so-called crown and government lands that are not being used for the public good, to be dispersed to every individual citizen of Jamaica whose ancestors were enslaved. The UIC will return your ancestors' land to you free of charge. The UIC will abolish the property tax to make you a real landowner instead of a mere landholder. The UIC will go further and guarantee every family that is willing to work for it an affordable, decent 2 or 3 bedroom home with at least 2 bathrooms, a nice kitchen, living and dining room of quality that you can be proud of, and with the space that you can be comfortable in, not those mattress boxes you see them passing off as homes. You might think that we can't do this. You might think it's impossible for us to do this. It's not impossible. It's more than possible. This should have been done a long time ago, a very, very long time ago. If Singapore, that started out worse than us, with a land mass much smaller than ours and a population that is twice ours, if they were able to make 93% of their people homeowners, we can and must do better. The UIC will make every hard-working Jamaican a family that owns a property. Every single Jamaican family must become a property owner and will become a property owner under a UIC government, because we're going to give you what is truly yours. But let us back up for a little though. I want to go back to the history component of this discussion or presentation. Let us go back a little, because I don't want you to miss the second trick. I want you to understand the first trick clearly, and I want you to be ready to understand the second trick. So in 1838, when they supposedly freed the slaves, I have shown you that it was a fake freedom, because they simply freed us to beg a job from our former slave masters. We had no land, we had no money, and we had no education. So the whole thing was a sham. After 106 years, from the fake freedom of 1838 to 1944, they now had to implement a new trick, because we gradually, in our ignorant state, we gradually began to figure out the fake freedom, that it was a trick. And so we started to burn down some more plantation and chop up some more people. And so they said, hold on a second, we need now to bring in a new trick, because the first trick is wearing off. So in 1944, they brought in a new trick. And this trick came with a lovely name. It was called universal adult suffrage. You know, like universal healthcare or universal wage. You know, there's this idea now about giving everybody a universal income. Yeah. So be careful with all of their nice words when they come to you with them and nice phrases. Figure out what is the real underlying trick in all of those pronouncements, whether it's free healthcare or free education or free food, whatever it is. Ask what is the fine print, and they won't tell you. So search for it, or come to me and I'll point it out to you. So in 1944, they brought a new trick in. The 1838 trick took 106 years to wear off. Yeah, 106 years, we were captured in a fake freedom without land, without money, and without education. Yeah. And so in 1944 now, they brought in a new trick. And this new trick they called universal adult suffrage. They also called it self-governance. Yeah, nice name, self-governance, universal adult suffrage. They also use phrases like one man, one vote, like the equality campaigns of today. So you feel good, eh? One man, one vote. This was nothing but a fake democracy, where they tried to trick us into thinking we had a say, while their governor remained firmly in charge of the government, regardless of who we were allowed to elect. So the people were allowed to elect persons and say, oh, we elect him, we elect her. Oh, we elect this person from this party and we elect that person from this party. But the structure of their so-called self-governance had a British governor at the top who saw to it that any laws that the elected representatives were trying to pass, if those laws were not in the direction that Britain wanted it to go, they could stamp it out quickly. So they had a governor in place to deal with that. So that was a fake democracy, very fake. Now the genesis of this next trick, this fake democracy trick, started with the rise of Marcus Garvey. Yeah. So Marcus Garvey had formed the first ever grassroots party in Jamaica. Like the UIC today, his UNIA movement and party was crowdfunded by the people. It was not owned by the elites. The elites didn't own and control it. The elites didn't control Garvey. The plantocracy, the PSOJ oligarchs today, they were called plantocracy back then, they didn't own Marcus Garvey and they didn't own the Marcus Garvey party, so they could not control him. Just like how the UIC today wants to make sure that we're not owned by the PSOJ oligarchs or anybody else but you. So the UIC is crowdfunded. Our entire design is built on being a grassroots party, which is of the people, by the people, and for the people. Marcus Garvey was the very same thing. That was his principle. And we have adopted Marcus Garvey's philosophies and principles as it relates to ensuring we have a solid grassroots movement, which is owned and controlled by we the people. Not by them, the plantocracy, or them, the PSOJ oligarchs, or them, the colonial powers. We want to be 100% controlled by the people of Jamaica, for the people of Jamaica. So, what did the colonial masters do when they saw the rise of Marcus Garvey and the rise of the Marcus Garvey party that was grassroots and crowdfunded by the people? What did the colonial masters do? They outsmarted us again. I remember I told you at the beginning, they're swift and quick and effective at outsmarting us. And we have a challenge because we not so bright. Not because we don't want to be bright, but because we have a built-in system where they had already kept us ignorant. Remember, how do you control slaves? By fear, yeah, by poverty, yeah, and by ignorance. That's how you control slaves. Make them afraid of you, make them poor, and make them unable to do what? To question you, or to understand what you're doing, to see your strategy, to understand what your plan is. So you keep them ignorant. So the colonial masters quickly sprang into action to get rid of Marcus Garvey and his party. So they colluded with the plantocracy. So the colonial masters are outside of the country, the big guys who want to keep Jamaica as a colony. And then they have the plantocracy, those who are on the island, who are owning the property, and they're the big men, the plantocracy, just like how we have the PSOJ today. So the colonial masters colluded with the plantocracy who want to keep things the same way. The business elites who want to keep control of our economy. The colonial masters colluded with them. Now, these plantocracy or business elites, which today we call the PSOJ oligarchs, they also own the media. And this media is used to carry the fake news, the propaganda that they want to carry. And so the plantocracy colluding with the colonial masters, the plantocracy or PSOJ oligarchs control the media. And so together they created two fake political parties that they would fund to give us the illusion of choice and to give us the belief that here is somebody working for us, and to shift us away from the real leader, Marcus Garvey, and the real grassroots party, and shift us now away from that. Push out Garvey, destroy his grassroots party, and divide us and distract us with their two colonial parties. They used two white-looking men. Remember, we're brainwashed. We're mental slaves now, where white is right and black is wrong. Black is bad and white is good. So they used two white-looking men, Alexander Bustamante and Norman Washington Manley. They used those two figures to get us to feel confident. If two white men go and fight for it, we're good. So Bustamante went and opened his shirt and say, shoot me and leave the people, and so we will follow Bustamante till we die. And Norman Manley stole the ideas of Marcus Garvey, stole the words from his manifesto, make those words his own and his party's, and then peddle that to the people so that they sound good and they can marginalize Marcus Garvey. And guess what? It worked. It worked beautifully. These two white-looking men, Alexander Bustamante and Norman Manley, were used to front these two colonial parties. And together with the money, the big money of the plantocracy, the elites, the PSOJ oligarchs of the time, combined with the power of the media working for them, they successfully destroyed the one true black man party, the one true black man grassroots party, and replaced that with the white man party, the colonial masters party, the two colonial parties, but we couldn't tell the difference. We couldn't see clearly because they have the money to buy with food and liquor and put on social events. They have the media to tell you how to think and say Garvey bad, Garvey this, Garvey that, and miss and frame him the way they want to frame him in our minds. So every day the newspaper come out and you see Garvey that, Garvey bad, Garvey no good, don't trust him. He want to thief your money. He want to rip you off. He's a dictator. And they put all kind of negative things out there about Garvey. He's bad. So they depress the minds of the people. And then they say, look at these two men, these two angels. Don't they look like angels? Look at beautiful Norman Manley, handsome, tall, and white-ish. Beautiful Sir Alexander Bustamante, handsome and tall and flamboyant and, gregarious and, oh, look at him, beautiful. And he's fighting for the downtrodden, fighting for the hard-working man, fighting for the people. Go away with Marcus Garvey, with them little grassroots party, can hardly find money to do anything. Go over here, so see the money there. Look, they must be successful. They have the money to put on the ads. They have the money to put on the fancy events. They have the money to call us out and build crowds and run motorcade. So we run over there. And remember, we're bringing us up there yet to do. We're just like a motor slavery. Poor education, most of us. We can hardly read, can hardly write, and by God can hardly reason. And so now they're tricking us real nice. So they copied the words of Marcus Garvey's political party manifesto and they made it their own. But they made sure never to actually implement any of Garvey's ideas effectively, if at all. So while they tell you the words, for example, take the NHT, for example, the National Housing Trust. We all love that. Wonderful. We have a program that is going to give our people housing. But it's a trick. They take all our money, all of the poor people money, and they give only a slice of us, 25%, most of whom are the higher income bracket area. 75% will never get a house. But we feel good that they brought in this wonderful program and they can talk about it in nice florid language while they then rape it and take the money out to fund all of their corrupt activities. That's how all the programs are, whatever they are, no matter how nice the program is. It's always used as a tool for corruption, a tool to extract your wealth and money while telling you how much they love the poor. So just like the fake freedom of 1838, the fake democracy that they gave us in 1944 was just to transition us from one form of slavery to another, and it worked. The fake freedom in 1838 was to transition us from the kind of slavery which had become uneconomical. It was no longer economical to continue to have all these slaves on the plantation. You have to manage them, you have to beat them, you have to get them to do whatever. The market has changed. The environment had changed. And so now they want to put out the slave now. Come out, you go take care of all your costs now. You go and you can come beg me back a job. And I will hire you now for pittance. And I know you don't have any options because you now have no education. Yeah? You now have no land to go plan nothing for yourself. Yeah? And you now have no money because we already extract all your labor and your grandparents' labor and your parents' labor. So we have all the money over here. So we can decide what you can or cannot do. And we control the government. So we're free, you know, to come beg away a job. So that was 1838. And then come 1944 now, too much agitation, let's give them something to make them feel good. You can vote now, you can vote, but we're going to give you two parties. Yeah? So they used the fake democracy to get rid of Marcus Garvey because he was rising. So get rid of him so he's not a problem anymore. The people won't worry. The people won't hear anything good anymore. They won't have a good leader anymore. So get rid of Marcus Garvey and give us two fake political parties. And they use these two fake parties to divide us into two hostile tribes. P.J. Patterson says, perpetually at war, fighting for political scarce benefits and spoils. That's what they did to us. They use these two fake parties to distract us with partisan politics so that we stop focusing on the colonial master as our real enemy and start seeing each other as the enemy. We stop fighting for equal rights and justice and start cussing and scamming and killing each other as labor rights versus comrades, as orange versus green. You see how them trick we? And it worked beautifully. We have become greedy, antisocial, and corrupt. We have no problem thumping, stabbing, and shooting men, women, and children. We have no respect for our elders or seniors, no love for our neighbors, no pride in our surroundings. They have stripped us bare of our humanity and culture, and many of us are now no better than a scavenging vulture. That's what they've done to us. That's what these two parties have been used to do to us. That's what the PSOJ oligarchs are continuing to perpetuate by funding these two parties to do that to us. That's what the colonial masters wanted to happen to us. So that in our division, in our distraction, in our artificial poverty, they can continue to have dominion over our country. And it has worked, it has worked, it has worked. And it continues to work to this very minute, this very second. This is how they're destroying you and me. This is how they're destroying our children. This is how they're destroying our land. This is how they have destroyed our economy. This is how they're robbing us of prosperity. Real prosperity, not the fake one that Andrew has promised you. Prosperity without productivity don't exist. So don't make nobody fool you. Don't make no politician come and tell you about them going to give you prosperity unless they can show you clearly how they're going to create a productive Jamaica. And you cannot create a productive Jamaica unless you educate our people to understand the past, understand their origin, understand their culture, and how to revitalize our society. Regain our position and status as black men and women, as Africans who have confidence in ourselves. So we cannot continue to listen to these misleaders and hope to ever achieve any form of real development in Jamaica. Now they're telling you that you need to raise their pay before they can do their work. So what have they been doing for 80 years? So for 80 years, they have not been doing their work, and now we must increase their pay in order for them to do their work? That's what Andrew wanted to believe. That's what Mark wanted to believe. That's what Lisa Anna wanted to believe. That's what Nigel Clark wanted to believe. That's what P.J. Patterson wanted to believe. That's what Bruce Golding wanted to believe. They all wanted to believe that the way for them to finally do for you what you thought you hired them to do for you for the last 80 years is for you to give them 100, 200, and 300% increase. Anyways, after nearly 400 years of slavery, the fake freedom in 1838 was greeted with much cheer and jubilation by the unsuspecting and ignorant slaves on the colonial master's plantation. So when the Queen of England declared, "You are now free as of 1838, everybody jumped up and down and danced and cheered, and they were excited. No idea that they were being tricked right then and there. And they were so excited, they didn't even know what freedom means. All they know that slavery going done now and them going to be free now. But free to do what? Free to beg a job, free to live in squalor, free to live ignorant and in poverty for the rest of your life. But they were jumping up and down, cheering and jubilant. It took another 106 years before the slaves, after much agitation and the burning down of some more plantation, before the colonial masters were forced to introduce fake democracy, to which the then generation jumped up and down again to much fanfare and celebration, again not realizing it was another scam, another con. So shortly after that generation began to clamor for better pay and for better working conditions, as the poverty licked them up, they said, hold on, something right. They're not mentally strong yet, because remember, no education, but they start to feel it again in them belly, in them pocket, and they see it in the eyes of their children. So they say, hold on, something right. This freedom not right. This democracy not right. So they start to clamor for better wages, for better working conditions, while struggling to exist in a racist and classist situation. They began to see the trick of the fake democracy, because it didn't matter which of the two parties they voted for, they were still subject to the governor appointed by England. So that's the wait, man, something right, but England's still in charge. So in 1962, they pull off another trick, the grandest of all trick. They gave us a fake independence. Because we start to realize now that the democracy wasn't working. And so they have to come up with a new trick. And so this time they say, oh, let's call this trick independence. So that we call the previous one adult suffrage and self-governance, and it wasn't working as well as we thought. Or maybe it did. They used that 18-year period to acclimatize us to these two fake parties. Yeah. So anyways, in 1962, they pulled off another trick and gave us fake independence. But only after they had us buying into the idea of their two colonial parties and the idea of partisan politics, which were a big part of the fake democracy trick. They got us to buy it. And we bought it hook, line, and sinker. We start to tribalize now. We start to see our tribe. My tribe are the orange tribe. My tribe are the green tribe. And we get used to it now, to the point where we start to use sticks and stones and throw after each other and cuss each other about your green man and your orange man. Yeah. So once we bought into the two colonial parties that they wanted to divide us into, and once they got rid of Marcus Garvey and his philosophy of unity, liberty, and empowerment of the African, they knew we were ready for the next magnificent con. So our people in 1962 were bursting with grandiose expectations, jubilant excitement, unabashed pride as they welcomed the British monarchy to sit as their head of state and hand down to us a fake constitution that reflected their will, their desire, their dreams, not yours, not mine, not ours. But we have bought into their fake constitution and their fake independence. And we have accepted them as our head, them as our Lord and Governor still, them as the symbol of greatness as opposed to ourselves. We even got used to the idea that our skin was a badge of shame. We call each other black boy in a negative tone. You're black like. You see your head tough like. And we get into all of these negative connotations about ourselves. And so if we're going to have a Miss World, she must look more like a Miss Hannah than Miss Pauline. Can you see what our misleaders led us into? Can you see what these two parties have done to us, my people? Can you see the damage that they've done to us? Can you see where they've led us, how they've led us, what they've led us to? They have destroyed every fiber of our being as a people. And the longer they lead us, the worse we shall become. The more we elect them, the more we are electing our destruction. The longer we leave them in our government is the more our government will become our enemy each and every day, no matter what they say. These two colonial parties actually helped their colonial masters to divide, distract, and deceive us, so that they would be able to continue to extract our wealth from us. That's what they're doing. Every single day, they're thieving your wealth the same way they did 500 years ago. Not the exact methodology of, say, chaining you up and whipping you, but using modern, more sophisticated means, but the end result is the same. To have you working very hard to enrich them while you die poor, stressed and poor, depressed and poor, exhausted and poor. And after 45 years of work, you still retire poor. You might have been a nurse before, a teacher before, a policeman before, but God help you when you retire and see the reality of how they have used artificial inflation to wipe out your wealth. How they have paid you low and promised you a pension that is of no value, no worth, no purchasing power. And as you get older, you can't fix the roof. You can't fix the plumbing. You can't fix the old and antiquated and rusted out electrical system in your house, if you even own a house. You're struggling to pay the rent. Even at 65, you have to be paying rent. And if you have a house passed down to you from your grandparents or parents, fortunate that they had something, you can't fix the roof. The wall will crack up and a tear up, you can't fix it. The floor, board floor, rotten out, you can't fix it. Can't put a little bit of paint on the wall. The gate rusty and mash up and a tear down, you can't fix it. These two colonial parties led us to revere and respect and accept the colonial masters as our superior, as our head of state, not just from 1962 to today, but from the beginning of our enslavement to this very day. The queen of slavery or the king of slavery, they have maintained that over you, over me, over us. And now they're going to play with us about constitutional reform. Now that the UIC, in the spirit and power of Garvey, has risen to educate, liberate, and empower our people, these two colonial parties, together with the PSOJ oligarchs who fund them and who fund the media that they own and control to spread propaganda, they will rise up again to stop us from emancipating ourselves from colonial bondage. That's what they're doing now. That's why you can't see the UIC on TV. That's why no matter what the issue is, you'll only hear PNP, JLP. The issue is inflation, PNP, JLP. The issue is high prices, PNP, JLP. The issue is gas prices, PNP, JLP. The issue is crime, PNP, JLP. The issue is corruption, PNP, JLP. They want your brain to be saturated with those two options only. So no matter what, you switch to this one, we PSOJ oligarchs still in charge. You switch to this one, we PSOJ oligarchs still in charge. Don't switch to no UIC. Make sure that people don't hear them, don't know them, and don't see them. And if they even hear about them, it must be in a negative light. Just like we did with Marcus Garvey and the Marcus Garvey grassroots crowd-funded political party. That is their strategy, and it worked 100 years ago, 80 years ago. It worked, and they hope it will work again. So the new trick now is to lead you to either vote in a referendum to keep things just as they are, or vote for a fake republic where they just change the title of Governor General to President, do some window dressing, but keep the corrupt colonial system in place while declaring we're now a republic. That is the next trick. That is the big con that they're now about to unveil on you about constitutional reform, wage increases, digital currency, and all kinds of stuff, distractions. We print new money, all kinds of distractions. And then they cuss about it in Parliament between themselves, and they cuss on the news media and say, oh, I didn't say this, or I said that, or the Integrity Commission says that, and all kinds of distraction and mirage, all kinds of things to keep you humming and buzzing, not about the real thing. I am giving you the real deal now. I am sharing with you the real deal. I am opening your eyes to the real deal, while you have the vloggers out there jumping from one item to the next and keeping you entertained and saying all kinds of things to keep you all excited or angry or frustrated, but they offer you no solution. Because all those vloggers out there who are not telling you about the UIC, they don't want the UIC either. They want to keep things just the way they are, so that they are the center of attraction. You come to them for your amusement. You come to them to pour out your frustrations, but they have nowhere to send you except back to the PNP and back to the JLP, because they have no interest in rescuing this country from the colonial masters, from the colonial powers, from the colonial parties, and from the PSOJ oligarchy that funds and controls them. They have no interest in your emancipation from mental and wage slavery. They have no interest in that. Yes, they will talk a good talk, but they will never join the UIC. They will never come and join hands with you and me to say, let us rescue Jamaica. No, they're going to tell you, the UIC is not ready yet. They're going to have people say, Mr. Patterson is a dictator. Mr. Patterson is bad. Mr. Patterson is this. They might thief the money. Where the money will go, and all kinds of stuff. They'll do everything that they did to Marcus Garvey. They will do it again, because they do not want you ever to be free. They want their ratings on YouTube. They want their ratings to go up so that YouTube give them more money in their account. That's what they want. So while you are busy giving them ratings, liking their shows and sharing it all over the place, all you're doing is helping to destroy your country and your future and that of your children and grandchildren. So they're all one and the same. All the vloggers out there who are not telling you to join the UIC and are not themselves joining the UIC and joining hands with you and me, they are working for the same colonial masters as the JLP and the PNP and the PSOJ oligarchy. That's what they're working for. They don't care about you. They care about the money that they get from the higher ratings on their vlogs. And some even may be getting money on the side from their preferred party. Same thing for the entertainers. They all talk about they want change. All the entertainers, they want change and time. We need change and we need better. And all they do is support and maintain the very same system. So yeah. So at the end of the day, after all of this so-called Constitutional Reform Committee, there will be two outcomes. Outcome number one, they'll come up with a nice phrase for a referendum and say, which one do you prefer? Do you want to vote yes, that we go a republic? Or will you vote no, that we stay where we are? And then the two parties will fight each other in public to confuse you and say all kinds of things to make you not sure what to do. And some of you will just no matter vote. And some of you will vote, you know what, leave things the way they are because that's too confusing. And some of you will vote, no, we want a republic. And maybe, let's say, at the end of the day, 60% of us voted and 40% no vote. Okay, so the 40% no vote, them out. The 60% that voted, maybe 51% of them vote for the republic. And they say, yay, we're now a republic. Life is great. Tricked. Or maybe 51% or more voted, no, leave things just the way they are. See, the people don't want to change. No problem. Right back where I want. Tricked again. It is a brilliant stroke of genius, and it's time for us to apply a stroke of genius ourselves and say, guess what? We're not going to vote yes or no to your question. We're going to vote time up and send you both out and allow the UIC to give us a true republic. They don't want you to know what a real republic is. They don't want you to know that in a real republic, your individual sovereignty is fully protected from everyone, including the government. They don't want you to know that in a real republic, your right to your life, liberty, and property is fully protected from all criminals, both foreign and domestic. And most importantly, you're protected from both elected and unelected criminals. In a real republic, there's no room for a dictator or dictatorship. No government or leader will ever again be able to use force or fraud to coerce you or your child into taking an injection you don't wish to take. They don't want you to have a real republic because a real republic protects you from a tyrannical government. That's why the UIC stood up against the medical tyranny of the present fake government during the pandemic or plandemic and declared, my body, my choice, no force, no fraud, because we understood what was going on. And while both opposition and government were there playing their footsies, we, the small grassroots political movement, crowdfunded in the same spirit and vein of Marcus Garvey, we stood up and we stood out and we pushed back and we educated and we lead the charge. And so at the end of that period, 80% of us still were not injected with their substance. So they arrested me. They physically abused me. They strip searched me in an open area because I stood up. I stood for liberty. So they locked me up in a dingy, dark, and dirty cell, and they attempted to deny me food, water, or bail, but they could not break my spirit. They could not stop this movement. They stopped Marcus Garvey, and they stopped his political party, but they will not be allowed to stop the UIC. This time, the spirit and power of Marcus Garvey has returned, and we shall not be stopped. The UIC that I lead will not allow them to trick us into a fake republic this time. Argument done. We are not going to allow them to trick the Jamaican people one more time. And I'm counting on you. I'm counting on your help to make sure we stop them. We must not allow them to trick us again. They got away with fake freedom. They got away with fake democracy. They got away with fake independence because we were ignorant. We didn't understand. We didn't realize what was going on. And so we couldn't act fast enough to build and solidify our own party around the visionary leadership of Marcus Garvey. But this time, we must not make the same mistake again. Don't let them kill Marcus Garvey all over again. Don't let them destroy the Marcus Garvey party all over again. Up, you mighty race. Rise up and take what is yours. This land is your land. This land is my land. Let us rise up and join hands with me in the UIC and take back our country. The UIC, my friends, is our last hope. It is our last hope of rescuing Jamaica from the path on which the misleaders and their colonial masters have put us. This is the last chance. If we allow them to get away with this next trick, we may never, ever recover from this one. We must act now. We must act fast. We must pool our time, our talent, and our treasure to crowdfund our own grassroots party to take control of our country and give ourselves the good governance we need to succeed. All it takes is for you right here in Jamaica to put aside $250 a week or $1,000 a month or more and say, this is for the UIC. This is for my party. This is for my movement. This is for my country, my family, and my children. And maybe you're overseas and you can do a little more. So you said, I'm putting aside this $10 every month, or this $25 every month, or this £20 every month. And I'm going to make sure that I do this to rescue my country. They have made you into an economic refugee. They have run you out of your own country, caused you to have to go somewhere else and slave in another man's country in order to enjoy the basics of life. A basic, decent life. You had to go away, leave your homeland, leave your family. Some of you left your children behind. And what suffering they went through. You left them with their grandparents. You left them with a neighbor. You left them on their own, some of them, and tried to go and make life. Some you were able to rescue and bring abroad. Some you lost them right here. Some come up and get involved in bad company. All kind of dysfunctions happen because your government, your country was not designed to give you the opportunity which you deserved. And so you ran away to make life better. And they made you an economic refugee. Well, the time has come for you to take back your country. And even if it is a Jamaica that you will not be able to fully enjoy, You want to make it so for your children and your grandchildren. We can do it, and we must do it. And so even now, as they're beginning to talk about they want to raise their pay, help me to make a powerful statement to them to roll it back. They're getting away with it, They're getting away because we are too soft. But we must say to them, no salary increases for any politicians until we have some basic things fixed in this country. Which means we're not going to allow them to do what they want to do. So we have to make it clear to them that there must be no raise of pay for any politician until we have job descriptions with performance metrics and targets to hold them accountable. That's number one. Job description, performance metrics, targets that we can check and see. Have you met the target? Number two, we need to have performance-based pay. Yeah. A performance-based structure that guarantee results. Things I know how to do. I'm an accountant, CPA. I've built many performance-based systems in my life. Number three, we must have fixed election dates to prevent political manipulation. You see how the current Prime Minister has been manipulating the local government elections, how he manipulated the last general elections? We must say no more. We want fixed election dates. All of them did it. All of the former Prime Ministers manipulated us with the fact that they get to call elections when they want. Number four, we must have effective recall, a process of recall to remove failing politicians before their terms end. Number five, we need to have a 100% publicly funded campaign system for candidates only. Meaning we're not going to fund parties. We're going to fund the candidates only so they don't have to be a part of any party. This will eliminate the colonial parties from controlling our government. No special interest groups, no PSOJ oligarchs will be able to control us if we have a 100% publicly funded system like what the UIC has designed and developed. Number six, we need to have an elected president that serves as head of government and head of state to lead the executive branch of government. He or she must be independent of the legislative branches, independent of the judiciary. And so now we can separate the executive and hold them accountable by way of the legislative branch and the courts. We also have to have elected senators, one per parish, instead of the way we have it now, where the two-party leaders get to appoint senators to be their lackey and their puppets. No, sir. We don't want senators who are puppets of party leaders, who are puppets of the PSOJ oligarchies. We want elected senators who are independent of the executive branch, who will stand firm and stand up for the parish, the people of their constituency, the parish that they represent. So we want elected senators. And number eight, we want elected community representatives who live, work, and serve in the constituency they seek to represent. No more outsider being dropped into a constituency by a party. We want the community to elect their own to represent them. And number nine, we want a meritocratic system of compensation for all workers in the public and private sector. And we want their pays to be pegged to inflation to protect them from inflation, to protect them from losing their purchasing power. So a meritocratic system, which means you don't get raised based on folly, you get raised based on your performance. So it goes up based on how you're performing, and it's pegged to inflation to protect you from the theft of your purchasing power, like what they're doing now. Number 10, no raise of pay until we have land reparation, which divests all of the so-called crown and government lands that are not being used for the public good. Return these lands to the Jamaican people from whose ancestors they were stolen. Number 11, cancel NIDS, cancel CBDC, bring back the Bank of Jamaica, and stop pushing that fake injection campaign that you have been on. Yeah, stop pushing it. We know that you're doing it under the quiet. Stop it and get us out of all international treaties that are trespassing upon the rights of our people. So don't come push any of those foreign agendas, whether it has to do with sex or gender or anything else. And finally, no pay increase for politicians until we have a new Jamaican constitution, a real Jamaican constitution that makes Jamaica a non-partisan constitutional republic, a real republic that fully protects the individual sovereignty, the life, liberty, and property of every Jamaican equally. I rest my case. Thank you all very much for being on here tonight. Thank you for your time. I hope you found this message to resonate with your desires as they are mine. And I hope you'll join hands with me and all the uniters across the world in ensuring that we rescue our country and make Jamaica, one Jamaica, united, strong, and free. Have a good night. Until next time, take care.